Hey everyone, how's it going? Today we're going to be making some pepperoni garlic knots. So this is a recipe that I did at Serious Eats, I don't know, 2012 or so. It was one of those game day recipes. So I grew up in New York, and twice a week or so, I would get a slice of pizza from Pizza Town 2 up on Broadway and in Morningside Heights. I would get a slice of pizza and 3 garlic knots. Back then, 3 garlic knots were 50 cents, I think, and a slice of pizza was $1.25. So for under $2, you can get a slice of pizza and 3 garlic knots. Garlic knots were a thing that pizzerias did in order to use up scraps of leftover dough, which is great because it means that you can use pizza dough. You can make your own pizza dough to do it, or you can just buy store-bought pizza dough. Now, in order to make this into more of a like a party dish, we're going to do them in this sort of pull-apart style, where we're going to bake it all inside a cast iron skillet. So I got a couple tablespoons of butter here. I'm going to also add a couple tablespoons of olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. This is not a low-fat treat. And here I have pepperoni. So this is stick pepperoni. I use boar's head, but any good quality stick pepperoni will work. You could also leave it meat-free. You could also do something like Spanish chorizo in there. That would be delicious. But this is pepperoni that I've just cut up into little cubes. And we're going to start sort of frying that all together. And what we want to see is the pepperoni to start sort of releasing some of its fat. The fat's going to turn a little bit red. The pepper is going to start to crisp up around the edges. Meanwhile, I'm going to get my garlic. So 6 garlic cloves. I'm going to trim off the ends. This is a medium-high heat in a cast iron skillet, by the way, 10-inch cast iron skillet. You could do cast iron, you could do carbon steel. I would avoid non-stick, but basically anything that is going to be oven safe, you can do here. All right. So for the garlic, we're going to trim off the ends, give it a little smash. Let it go flying. And then a chop. For a dish like this, it is important to use fresh garlic. Fresh garlic, or even garlic powder would work. What you want to avoid is the jarred stuff, which doesn't really have great garlic flavor. And this is a really garlic-forward dish. So the way a garlic knot would be made in a New York-style pizza shop is you take a strip of dough, you tie it into a knot, you toss it in oil, and then you bake it. And then afterwards, it would get tossed in a big bowl with garlic butter, essentially the same stuff that you would put on garlic bread. So it would be a mix of fresh garlic cooked in butter and olive oil, and then usually some garlic powder as well. And then maybe a little bit of fresh parsley chopped in there, or maybe some dried parsley or dried oregano. And then it would all get tossed in a bowl. And then what they would do is they would leave that bowl just sitting up on the counter. Sometimes the fancier places would put some Parmesan cheese in there as well. But they'd leave them sitting up in the window with the pizza. So when you order your pizza, they put the garlic knots in a little piece of foil. They pop it in the oven to reheat it, and that's how they do it. All right, so garlic in now that the pepperoni is starting to crisp up a little bit. Okay, and at this stage, I'm actually just going to shut off the heat and let the residual heat of the pan do the rest of the cooking here. So you don't want to burn the garlic. And as soon as that garlic is sort of fragrant, but not really deeply browned, we're going to dump this all into a big bowl here. Leave the pan, you don't have to wash it. We're going to use it in a second. Set the bowl aside. Into there, I'm also going to add a little bit of parsley. So when you're chopping parsley or any herbs like this, you can ball them up into a little ball like that. pinch them so that your knuckles, so your knife rides against your knuckles and you don't cut yourself. And then just do a little back and forth. All right. So I think in my original recipe, I advised flouring your board in order to work with your dough. These days, I find it's actually better to oil your board because we're going to be tossing this dough into a bowl of oil anyway. And so rather than using flour to keep it from sticking to itself, oil is the way to go. All right, so this is a pound. This is just store-bought pizza dough, a pound of store-bought pizza dough. Okay, I'm going to flatten it into kind of an oval shape here. And the goal is to get this into 24-ish pieces. The way I do that is I first divide it in half. Okay, and then we'll go into quarters. And then each one of these we want to divide into 6. So each one of those will make into like a little even-ish strip. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay if your garlic knots are all not all identical sizes because not all people are identical sizes. We'll do half and half, and then divide each of those into 3. We do the same, when I make these with my kids, or when I make like something like spaghetti and meatballs with my kids, we make balls or knots of all different shapes and sizes because they find it more fun to eat that way. I don't know, I guess I find it more fun to eat that way also. So divide in half, and then into thirds. All right, so at this stage, you could actually, if you wanted to, you could just take these balls of dough, toss them with the flavoring mixture, put them to the pan and bake them like that, and so sort of do it more of a monkey bread style. But we're gonna just tie these into knots, sort of like a, real easy. I do them the way I would do like a balloon, so I do 2 fingers, wrap it around, then you can spread your fingers apart a little bit and pull that end through. And then they could go right into the bowl of pepperoni fat. Knots, the reason that you do knots, of course, is because knots have a knotty shape that catches bits of garlic and pepperoni oil, so it holds the flavor a lot better. We're going to sit here and just stare at me tie knots for the next 5 minutes. I don't know. Can we get some kind of like incidental music here and do a little knot tying montage? Cameraman Michael tying the knot soon too, also, huh? Making a commitment to tie the knot.
Is that why we're doing garlic?
Michael was recently engaged. All right, so we got our knots in there. I'm going to finish this off with some Parmesan cheese. I don't know exactly how much my recipe called for, but we're going to do an unmeasured amount here. There's going to be some that goes on right now, and then some that will go on later when we're actually putting these in the oven. All right, so now we toss it all. There's no real need to add salt here because the pepperoni is quite salty and that is going to come out in the fat. If you skip the pepperoni part, if you're doing like a vegetarian version, I would add a few pinches of salt in here to season it to taste. All right, and now all of this can go straight back into that pan. And we're going to spread these out into a single layer. Depending on the exact model of pan you use, there'll be more or less tightly packed. And then at this stage, I'm going to cover it up with foil and let the knots rise in there. You can either let them rise at room temperature for about an hour or so until they're roughly doubled in size. They may, depending on the type of dough you use, sometimes store-bought dough doesn't actually rise that well, which I think this particular brand I know doesn't actually rise that well until it goes into the oven. But anyhow, you want to let it rise for about an hour at room temperature, or you can cover it in foil and let it sit in your fridge overnight and just bake it the next day. So I'm going to be back. I'm going to cover this with foil, and I will be back momentarily. All right, so it's been a day in the fridge, and these have roughly, actually they did roughly double in size. Sometimes that supermarket dough doesn't always rise like that. All right, but these are ready to go. I'm gonna take a little bit more Parmesan. You can use Romano also. You can even use the stuff from a, from a can. It'll work just fine for something like this. All right, and then that's gonna go into a 425 degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. All right, it has been 25-ish minutes. Whew. These are ready to come out. So look at that, nice and golden brown all over. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some of the sort of fancy extra virgin olive oil this time. The other one was just the baking kind, the cooking kind. This is the real fancy stuff. And I'm gonna brush a little bit of that over the top just to get some of that olive oil flavor in there. And I'm also going to one final shower of Parmesan. And then I'm going to burn the out of my mouth. All right. Bowl of sauce on the side for dipping. This is just a jar of Rayo's. You can use whatever sauce you like. You can make it homemade if you'd like. Whew. Look at that. Pepperoni cooked into the nooks and crannies. Ooh, that's hot. All right, really testing the asbestos level of my fingers today. And my tongue, I guess. That was a boy that's delicious and boy that's hot simultaneous. Ah, nice cooling tomato sauce. When I wrote the article about this dish, I was really happy with the idea and really happy with how it came out. And I said at the time that if you were a pizzeria and you're looking for an appetizer to serve, like doing like a little 4-inch cast iron skillet full of pull-apart pepperoni garlic knots, I feel like that would be a big hit, and you have my permission to steal that idea and run with it. I haven't seen any place doing it yet, but I think it should be done. All right, pull-apart pepperoni garlic knots, great for a party, great for kids. Let everything obviously cool before you pass them out. They're totally fine at room temperature also. They're good warm, they're good at room temperature. Just an ideal party food. And if you don't like the pepperoni, you can leave the pepperoni out. So all we did, store-bought pizza dough. We made a garlic butter with pepperoni fried into it. We tied the store-bought pizza dough into knots. We tossed it with that garlic butter, and then we packed it into here, let it rise, and bake it all with some Parmesan. Serve it with some tomato sauce on the side. Real easy. All right. I don't think there's anything in here that Chen can eat unless he wants to. Hey Chen, you want a little bit? Oh, Chen, you want a little bit of Parmesan? Sorry, I always got to give the dog his tax, you know. Yeah. Oh, Chen, over here, bud. Yeah. Good boy. Ooh, nice catch. All right. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, and four-legged friends, I will see you next time. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. You can find the full article and recipe along with bonus content and my newsletter for free on my Patreon. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel for more videos like this, or my alternate channel, Kenji Lopez Main, for my dining content. And follow me on Instagram at Kenji Lopez-Alt for daily updates. You can also get signed and personalized copies of any of my books. That's The Food Lab, The Walk, or my children's book, Every Night is Pizza Night, shipped from Book Larder here in Seattle. Find the links to all of this, as well as all of the tools I used in today's video, in the description below. Thanks.